I don't think it's always that you have to bare your deepest, darkest secrets to everybody in the room. But whenever you're going through a trial or something that's hard, it's important to have people around you who you can lean on for support, who are willing to invest in you, to check on you, to help in the aspects that they can. Because you need that. We need those people to help us and support us and bring us up. Reason why the brotherhood of men, the collection of men, is so important. Because we can't do this thing on our own. You know, I don't want to be standing alone, facing the enemy, left to my own devices, left to my own skills and ability to comprehend and handle things. But I will stand in front of it with a group of people around me. We are in a new conversation this week, and the title of it is The Power of Brotherhood.
Brotherhood. If you're going to talk about Pointman, you're going to talk about men's ministry, you got to talk about brotherhood, because that's one of the main reasons we're here. Follow God, yes, but also to have the guys around you, the brotherhood that's with you, even though if it does sound cliche.
Yeah. It's definitely a cliche. But cliches aren't always bad. There's a reason they exist, and there's a reason that the thought prevails throughout culture and society. And it's because at some point it has some significance. And for us and the mission we have here to help men connect to one another, connect to God, connect to their Bible, it's important. Brotherhood's important. The most cliche verse to go along with this, I'll just keep piling them on today, is Proverbs 27 verse 17. It says, iron sharpens iron and one man sharpens another. Every men's ministry in the world at some point has had this on the back of a t-shirt, or it's been the key verse for a series or a message topic. It's used a lot, but it's important. And it shouldn't be just discarded as uncreative or unthoughtful because it's been used before, because it's really a powerful verse in and of itself. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Connection between two men it's very significant. It's very important that connection that we create. When I was thinking about this, I looked at it in three key aspects. One, we have that the connection between men will challenge where you're at. It will also correct where you've gone wrong, and it will also compel you to do the right thing.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of sports podcasts, as you yourself also probably listen to a lot of sports podcasts, maybe more recently than not. But there was one guy who I listened to. He does the Razorbacks, and he was like, "Man, I don't know where this saying 'iron sharpen iron' comes from. It comes from the Bible." He didn't know, but ironically enough, but he was like, "You need to get a sharpening stone now. You don't need to do iron. Iron doesn't sharpen iron." And I thought it was funny just because it's not talking about literal like iron sharpening iron. He was like, "Get a sharpening stone out, sharpen your tools instead of using that." So I thought that was funny. But in the end, yes, it comes from the Bible, but it's talking about men who are men or people in the church that are making you a better person than you were. So men and another Christian man can actually make it better between them two, not just, a literal iron sharpening another iron. So
yeah,
just funny.
I was thinking about it in this aspect. If one guy walks in the gym and he maxes out on the bench press by himself, has nobody around him, he may feel really strong. But he has nothing to compare that strength to. He has nothing to know if he even did it right, or if the standard's right, or whatever the rules are. He has nothing to compare it to. He just knows what he did. He knows the weight on the bar, and he's excited about that. He thinks that he's really strong. Might be the weakest human on earth. But he has no clue. Second guy walks into the gym, two guys walk into the gym together to work to max out together. One challenges the other. One pushes the other to lift more weight than they probably would have before. One might correct their perception of strength. This guy thinks he's strong. He sees this other guy get on the bench, and he realizes not that strong. And then they compel each other to work harder. Yep. You don't want to be the guy who's not as strong, so you're constantly working to do better. When we start to look at this verse, when we start to look at challenge, correct, compel, and when we have other men around us that are close to us, that's what just naturally will come out. Even if we don't intentionally seek relationships that challenge, compel, correct and compel, that's just naturally men's relationships fall into this, because we always want to be the best we could possibly be. We want to be the best version of ourselves in a lot of aspects, and whenever you're around other people who are trying to do the same thing, you're constantly going to be moving the bar up higher and higher into what a righteous or a holy life looks like.
100%. I agree with everything except for one of the things that you said.
What's that?
You said that everybody wants to do better. There is people out there who are like, don't care about being better. And those are the people I try to avoid at all costs.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
I disagree. I think every human wants to be better than they are yesterday.
I thought that. And then, I don't know, over the last couple of years, there's been people that I've like been around who are like, man, I don't really care if I do anything. I mean, maybe they want to get better at, I guess, maybe things that I don't really necessarily care to get better at. Maybe that's the perception. But like hanging out with them, I know I'm like, I'm not getting better at the things that I want to get better at. Maybe that's more of the.
And that's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I want to hang around guys who are, for me, myself, I want to hang around guys who are chasing after Jesus or chasing after things to get themselves better. Maybe my aspect of like, living healthy life, living a life where you're honoring God, serving others, and like taking care of your own body, working out, stuff like that. Like if you're not getting better in those aspects, I don't really want to hang out with you that much. I mean, I want to hang out with you like in certain occasions, but like guys that I'm actually wanting to hang out with every single day, those are the type of guys I want to hang out with.
Yeah, I think I genuinely believe that every person wants tomorrow to be better than today was. And whatever the thing that's most important to you, I think that they generally do. I don't think anybody who didn't, if you made $10 yesterday, you want to make 15 tomorrow. Like it's just naturally ingrained in us. Now, are there some people who maybe have given up?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's exceptionally rare. I think the rule is that even those who are maybe in the deepest despair, the deepest like kind of screw it meter level of of life, I think even they still really do want a better tomorrow than they had today. But I think part of this equation is iron sharpens iron. You're talking about guys, we're pulling guys into brotherhood is one perspective. So it's you're here and you're in this community and you want people to enter this community with you, and that's important. We do want them to enter this community. The other side of it though is these guys might not look like you, smell like you, be like you. You've got to be willing to enter that community with them as well and help them grow into the right direction. So we can't just throw away, like, I'm not saying that you have to spend every moment of every day with someone who is not moving in the right direction, but if you just completely disparage from those people, how are they ever going to be able to find the comfort to enter into that community in that way?
Yeah, the only spot where it kind of makes me think twice is like if they start rubbing off on you, and then you're like, I got to separate myself a little bit from these characteristics that I don't want. I'll watch I watch a YouTube channel that it takes like a group of two people, and then it shows them over like the 6 months, and they're trying to like essentially they go to fat camp, and they like separate themselves from their normal lives and go to fat camp for a while, and they try to lose weight. And they're always like, yeah, you need to, work out your right. They always do it. But the trainer's always like, if they go back to the same people that they're hanging out with, they're going to get into the bad same habits. So like they know the difference. People who are like, I need to separate myself from my friends and get new friends, healthier friends, people who are pursuing that, because they know like if they go back to that lifestyle and they hang out with those exact same friends when they get back, doesn't matter how much weight they lose or how much dieting they did while they were here, they're going to get right back into those same habits. And I think that goes along with the same thing you're talking about is like, you need to get around men who are chasing after God, and that really, it helps you because if you get in those groups, then you know that they're going to push you further than what you would if you were hanging out with people, pursuing people who are not doing those same things.
Well, think about the fat camp example.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
the fat camp paradox.
Yeah.
But if all you know is the people who are in that lifestyle, and that's completely what you're surrounded by. It's you're the average of your 5 best friends quote. You're going to end up moving back into that lifestyle. But I challenge if the bulk of your time, the bulk of your friends, and you have a good community of people who are moving in the right direction, doing the right thing, that's where the bulk of your time is spent. The time you're spent with people who are not in that community does not have the same impact, because every other day, the bulk of your time, you're going back into this substantive community of people who are trying to help move forward. And so I don't think you have to be concerned. You have to be concerned, but I don't think you have to be as concerned about this old lifestyle rubbing off on you or this other way of thinking rubbing off on you, because that's not where the bulk of your time is being spent. The bulk of your time's over here with people who are moving in the right direction.
Oh, that's good. I think about it sometimes too, where I'm like, man, certain parts of my life where I need to hang out with people work wise that are trying to, like, if you're hanging out, like when I joined the Air Force, you can hang out with a group of people who are like, I'm getting out. I don't care. I'm not ever staying in the Air Force. But I'm like, I don't need to be hanging out with those guys. I'm going to get that same mindset. So I need to hang out with people who are like, I'm going to do something with my career. You know, I need to provide for my family. I can't just be getting out all loosey goosey. So it just makes me think a lot about my circles of life and how you make those choices really impacts the rest of your life. So think about it more than you should.
Yeah, no, and that's important. And you can get into, you know, conversations where people are, like you said, they're like, we're just getting out.
Yeah.
And you'll fall into like where everything's negative, everything's bad, and you've got the right answer, and it's somewhere else and something greater. And the reality is you just, like you say, you fell into a community of people who's just dragging you down in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And you got to just kind of move from that. And I agree with that. Yeah. When it comes to specific things, when we're talking about the community believers, though, you know, if the community established that loves Jesus and is trying to grow in their relationship with him doesn't allow those that are outside who are interested in entering the community, then all that happens is we have this community of believers who is substantive, who is rooted, and who is trying to grow. And then we have this other budding group of believers who have nothing to get rooted in.
Yep.
And so now we move to the Ephesians 4 conversation about mature manhood, and we have the older generation the substantive group of believers who have rooted down and have grown into mature manhood because they're not swayed by doctrine, not trying to change the Bible. They're rooted in the truth and they're moving forward. But then they're looking down on this group that's come in who is swayed because they have nothing to be rooted to. They have no one investing down in them. They're not being sharpened by other believers. And so now we leave them on this island and we just chastise them for their view on faith, but no one's reaching out.
Yeah.
And no one's trying to help, and no one's allowing them to come into the group and to grow. And so I think it's just both ways.
No, I 100% agree. If they're willing to and they want to do that, pull them in fast as possible. And it just takes me back to the golden rule: is treat others how you want to be treated. If you're like, I need to get in that group, and like people are like, oh, I don't want you in my group. Like, that's not the way Jesus wanted to do it. Like, pull them in for sure. But I was just talking about like the aspect of people who are like, I don't want to be in your group, but you're still hanging out with them anyway. That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah. You know, another thing about brotherhood, the power of brotherhood that I think is worth mentioning and going through is Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. It is when we are willing to gather with one another and to take on the burdens of one another that we are able to imitate that of the ultimate burden bearer in Jesus.
Yep. Oh, 100%. And you get around a lot of times. You'll see it the most common in like community groups. That's where I see it the most common. Is like a lot of times you'll get people's prayer requests, or they'll just, you know, before and after you do your community group, you'll hear them like, I'm going through this, or I'm struggling with this. And it really, and not only like, yes, they can help you with certain things like, oh, hey man, I need this tree cut down. You're like, well, I got a chainsaw. But not only just like know that someone's there for you and then listening to you, even if you can't necessarily help them in that situation, you're there to talk it out with them. And they're like, I feel better just because I got to just get it off my chest and have somebody there who'll listen with my conversation and the bad things that I'm going through. You're like, I'll listen. I'm there. You're like, I feel better. Thanks for being here for me for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's when we bear one another's burdens, we are able to embody Jesus to our community. We're able to encourage one another and support one another. And we're able to express the love of Jesus to others. But that takes vulnerability. And it takes a willingness to be able to open up and to be vulnerable to people and to allow them. I don't think it's always that you have to bare your deepest, darkest secrets to everybody in the room. But whenever you're going through a trial or something that's hard, it's important to have people around you who you can lean on for support, who are willing to invest in you, to check on you, to help in the aspects that they can. Because you need that. We need those people to help us and support us and bring us up.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. And becoming vulnerable, it's tough. Like if I'm struggling with something, I don't want to tell everybody. You know, that puts me in a vulnerable state where they can like, you putting yourself out there, you could get made fun of by someone. Okay. Like if you like, and that doesn't feel good. So you got to kind of pick and choose who you're spilling your guts to, because you don't want to be like, I mean, I'm struggling with this aspect and have someone laugh at you or make fun of you for that. That's not a healthy thing. So you got to be careful about who you be vulnerable to.
Yeah. That's true. If someone is making fun of the things that you're going vulnerable to, you need to walk away from that person, especially if they're inside of your community of faith.
Yep. Yeah, don't hang out with those guys.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that as believers, we hold other believers to a higher standard than we do to those who do not believe. And so if that would be I would walk away from that person. like you're supposed to know better. Yep. Like, here's your correction. Now don't talk to me for a while. Because that's not necessary. But inside of that iron sharpening iron, part of that is that we do need this burden bearer. We do need, Jesus is the ultimate burden bearer, but we do need people around us who are supporting us. And it's just another reason why the brotherhood of men, the collection of men, is so important. Because if we can't do this thing on our own. You know, I don't want to be standing alone facing the enemy, left to my own devices, left to my own skills and ability to comprehend and handle things. But I will stand in front of it with a group of people around me with the differing abilities, differing levels of the ability to handle hard situations and to take on some of the burden that I'm bearing. That really lightens us up and makes it possible for us to be successful in continuing to move forward in this walk and fighting back when necessary.
Yeah, I heard the statistic the other day where people were like, usually people don't quit because of pay, which seems weird. It's not the number one reason people quit. Usually the number one reason people quit is the people that they're surrounded by at work. And they're like, that's the number one reason. Like, I don't like the people at work. They don't have my back. I don't have theirs. They quit. I see this a lot in the military where people will join. They're like, man, I didn't know you could have a brotherhood like you do have when you join. There's a group of guys who are going through the same thing you are, and they're with you every day, and they'll do anything for you. And so I think it really strengthens you. It strengthened me whenever I first joined. I didn't really understand it, besides like the sports aspect where everybody's on the team. We're all trying to win together. But, you know, a lot of times you go to work and you have a group of people that are with you, the military-wise, where you're like, man, these guys are with me, and they understand you, what you're going through. So it strengthens you knowing that you have a group of guys who will do anything for you and hang out with you and, you know, be in the suck with you. It really changes your aspect on things.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, I always thought it was funny if you go down to the river here in Little Rock on Saturday and just run down the river trail, everybody smiles. Everybody's smiling at you. Everybody's like waving when you run by. And it's because everybody mutually understands that this is not a lot of fun, but we got to get it done. And so there's like a collective agreement of we're going to be nice to each other because everybody knows what's going through the minds of everybody else. I always thought it was funny, but every time you're doing that, anytime you go hiking, everybody you pass is always like, yeah. And the reason for that, I think, is a subconscious understanding that we're in the mutual pain cave, if you will, of this exercise. It's all good. We're going to support each other through it.
Yeah, that's funny. They're hiking up the hill, sweating to death, but they're like, well, I'm with you. We're together. Let's high five each other on the way up. So
we're out here today.
Yeah, that's good. It goes really with CrossFit as well. A lot of times community groups the groups of CrossFit, younger people would be like, I don't really care to work out, but I really enjoy the community aspect of it, and we come together every single week and get this task done of the workout. So
yeah, that's true. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So next thing, 1 Corinthians 12:27. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. We are each uniquely positioned and gifted to have an impact on the whole community of the body of believers and beyond. We're each uniquely gifted and positioned. With that, we have to understand that we cannot be the expert at everything. A community of men can shore up the shortcomings of others. A community of men is needed to push forward efficiently the mission. We have to accept and embrace our position. We can't just accept that we are what we are. We have to embrace it and utilize that. And then we must use our gifting to support others. That's really the power when we start to look at, of course, correct, compel, and move forward. You know, embody, encourage, and express. But really the connection and the community, the brotherhood, at its core, where it's most powerful is when we are able to each uniquely use what God has gifted us with to come together to fulfill the whole and all the needs of the whole, to push forward the gospel, but to grow each other and to have an impact on the community around us.
No, it's good. A lot of times you'll see this in our ministry, Pointman, where like you have somebody come in, they're like, well, I'm not a great speaker. Like, what, can you stack a chair? Like, no, I can stack a chair. I'll be here every single week. And you're like, hey, that's good. Let's go with us. That's just kind of knowing your role and what you're good at and what you're not good at. But yeah, a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm not going to serve because, my talent's not used. And you're like, what? You're good at something. No one's not good at anything. I mean, even if you'll show up early, like that's something that we need. But yeah, your talents, you are talented in some aspect of the area. Sometimes kind of got to pull that out, figure out what that is and use it for God's ministry, because God can use it, whatever that is, whatever that talent is.
Yeah, we all are talented in some aspect, and there's always some. This is church and the body of believers is just it's own ecosystem. There's a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like there's one aspect of your skills and abilities that can't be utilized here. Everybody's can, and so if you think that you don't have a substantive skill to add to the group, you're wrong, because there is one for everybody. I mean, all of them are needed. And, if it's not a skill that we can use right now, if you have 2 arms, 2 legs, you can stack a chair. And like that, you're right. And that's valuable because it helps break down barriers. It helps push the mission forward. And we have to all embrace that and accept that and push that and use that to push the mission forward.
It feels really good whenever you can kind of be a part of a team and you're like, I fill the gap, I fill the hole. For me, it feels really good whenever someone's like, man, we just need to get this done. You're like, oh, I could do that. For me, it feels good to be able to utilize my talents where I can, even though I don't have a ton of talents. I can still use them for God. It doesn't matter if you have a lot or have a little. But yeah, it reminds me of like if you're doing like a food pantry or something, and someone's like, "Oh yeah, I can't get out there and work, but you can stack a box up or something like that." So it just reminds me of like you can't always you use your talents where you're given because He does give you talents, and you have some. So
yeah, and you definitely need to use them in the right direction. But so power of brotherhood.
Yeah,
key takeaways is 1, you have to be vulnerable. In my opinion, vulnerability is important for you to enter. And that doesn't mean you have to bare your soul to every human you come across, but it does mean that whenever you enter into a community of men, be open and honest with them and allow them to help you grow and to correct where you're wrong, and be open to that and willing to accept correction whenever it comes. That's another thing that we just don't do well as men.
No, 100%. And if I'm doing something wrong and another guy comes up to me and has that wrong attitude of like, hey, stop doing that. You're not doing that right. I'm like, I'm not changing that. But if it comes to me in a nice way and be like, hey man, because of this reason, we need to change this. And I'm like, I'm open to that. I'm open to change my ways, my way I think about that for sure. And as long as they do it in a nicer way, don't yell come at me yelling.
Yeah. And I think, we also have to look at, old men help the young men grow, young men be open and honest and willing to allow the old men to help you grow, and use your skills and abilities, take them into account. Everybody's gifted different, but point them in the right direction and put them on the same ship as everybody else, and there'll be a great impact that happens. So invest in that, lean into that, and allow people to aid and bear the burdens that you have in your life.
Yes. So let's answer this question. If you feel like you're not a part of a brotherhood and you want to be a part of a brotherhood, or you're part of a brotherhood that you don't really care like, or just not getting better, or not going the direction you wanted to, how do you make that change?
Walk in the door. Find one somewhere and walk in the door. Quit being scared. Quit making excuses. You're just wussing out at that point. I don't care how uncomfortable you are. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he was talking about jobs, and he was talking about how he's kind of making a plan for the future, but you could tell there was a little timidness about him leaving the job he had for the job he may desire. And I just, my advice, not really advice, but in the conversation, I just said, at some point, you just got to do it and just accept that the next stage is an adventure in life. At some point, if you desire to be in the part of a brotherhood in the body of believing men, sometimes you just got to walk in the door and accept it as a new adventure in life and see what happens. And quit worrying about everything that's in your head. Just say, screw it, and walk in.
No, it's good. I listened to that Fear podcast the other day with Erwin McManus, and he was talking about how he got over the fear of that. He was like, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And so it just kind of hit me hard. Like, sometimes you just got to go for it, even if you're scared. even if you're terrified, you're like, to die is gain. So to die is be with Christ. So.
And let's just be real honest. You're not going to walk in every time to a group of men and it'd be the most fun thing you've ever been to. It's not a football game. It's not always going to be the most exciting thing ever. So if you're looking for entertainment and you're looking to be entertained, you're already wrong. That's not the point. The point is the context of growing in a relationship with other men who you might go to a football game with down the road. It's to grow in relationship to God and spend time, looking at the revelation that God gave somebody in a message or gave somebody in a study guide or whatever it may be that you may not have thought about before. It's not the Super Bowl. It's not a halftime show. It's not supposed to be this ultra. Do we want to have fun and do we want it to be inviting? Of course we do. But if you're waiting on it to be, a night out with the boys, that's not what it's going to be. It's never going to be that.
Yeah. For me, it feels like you come to a men's ministry or come to our men's ministry, Pointman podcast or Pointman at that church, and you hang out. And the first night, you don't really know a lot of guys, and you're like, you're here for that, like you're saying, like you'd be there for the entertainment or whatever is happening. But then as you come, you build that brotherhood. You build it, and you're like, I'm coming to hang out with the guys who are also chasing after Jesus. And that's what it feels like for me. It's like one of the bigger reasons to come and to hang out is to build those relationships with those guys. Like I'm excited to see my boy. Like last week, he was struggling with this. I can bring it up this week. We can talk about it. Or last week, he had this going on in his life. Let's hang out again and we could talk about that and talk about how God is changing him in his life. And so that for me is one of the bigger reasons why I really enjoy Pointman in a men's ministry in general. It's just because of that. Like you're saying, you might not come. You might not be the most entertained, but for me, that entertainment. That the reason that gets me there is the brotherhood of it. Yes, is the brotherhood that you get aligned with when you get there.
Yeah, it's more like training. It's more like going to the gym than it is anything else. There are days you really have fun in the gym and you do something cool or somebody says something cool or something happens and you have a lot of fun with it. And we're going to quit using gym analogies at some point, but it works today.
I think it works fine, yeah.
But, the rest of the time, it's a discipline of like, I got to get there, I got to get my work in, and I'm going to leave. Not every day that you walk in is it your favorite place to be and the favorite thing you're doing that day. You just know you got to go. At its essence, it's a very similar thing when we start talking about the brotherhood of men that is inside of a men's ministry such as ours. While we want it to be fun, we want you to have the best time you possibly can whenever you walk through the doors. That's not my goal. My goal is to help grow to the next step, however that means or whatever that looks like. And so I'll just be honest, I'm not unashamed to say we're not trying to entertain. We're trying to empower and encourage and help them grow and help men grow into the best version of themselves they possibly can. And sometimes it's a blast.
Yeah, we have a good time.
And sometimes you're training and you're in training. And be comfortable with that, but accept it as an adventure of life and just walk in to way roundabout and answer the question and just come in and see what happens. You put your name on a sheet of paper, you get a chair, and you see what happens. It's not a complex process.
Yeah, I think it will make a huge difference if you can surround yourself with the brotherhood. You might not think it would change you, but it does kind of slowly change you into the right direction. Slowly, it doesn't happen like overnight. You're like, oh, I got a brotherhood now. I'm a completely different person. It's a slower process, but one that's definitely fulfilling and will definitely push your life in the right direction versus hanging out with the guys you probably shouldn't be hanging out with, having the correct brotherhood.
Yeah, it's good. Well, hey, we thank you for joining us for the Pointman podcast. We hope that you found this engaging and interactive and informational. We're back each and every week with another conversation about how we can grow as men, grow in our Bible study, grow in our relationship with God, and we hope that you'll come along on the ride with us. With that, we'll see you next week.